Here in America, work is in trouble. We've offshored our manufacturing, sent away good jobs, and lost so much ability to make things. American Giant is a company that's pushing back against this tide. They make high-quality clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more right here in the USA. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com. Promo code STAPLE20.
Live again, Ohio Political News. Always, always, always live. Woo! Yeah. Woo. Whoa. Okay, tonight, a couple FEMA has, which is nothing. I mean, people do podcasts, not this one, but people do podcasts where they'll get way more than 97,000 views. You get a few 100,000 views and stuff. And this is an entire network, an entire big network, MSNBC. As a matter of fact, it's so big, they pay Rachel Maddow $25 million. $25 million. So that's a big network. How can you afford that when you get 97,000 people to watch Biden's last interview? I've got in a whopping 19 seconds, I'm going to show you because I can't stomach any more.
Way in debt and don't have the infrastructure to capacity to build the infrastructure.
And he's stumbling like crazy already. Can't even get any sentences out.
And so that's why, remember when they said, well, we'll never get an infrastructure bill?
Yeah, we remember.
Well, listen, I said you'd never get an infrastructure bill with my legislative experience.
Okay. I mean, thank God he's out of here. Noon. Tomorrow, he's out of here, okay? We bring in Trump. Trump gets sworn in tomorrow at 12 noon. Can't wait. And a couple other things that Joe Biden said in that interview was that he would have won the 2024 presidential race. He would have beat Trump if they hadn't kicked his caboose out of there and put Kamala Harris's caboose in. There's no way he would have won.
Nope.
There's no way. He would have done as bad as Kamala, maybe worse, okay? He still insists that he would have beat Trump. What a joke. What a joke. What an absolute joke. And speaking of Rachel Maddow, just to finish this all up, she's going to 5 nights a week on MSNBC. Not that anybody cares, but she was only on there once a week and making $25 million. What a gig. And now they're going to put her on her 5 nights a week. Her ratings have got to improve or they're going to get rid of her as well, and it's just hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Trump cannot come fast enough. Here's Megyn Kelly.
We have 20 hours until our long national nightmare is over.
You said it.
Woo! Almost there.
Almost.
That military recruiting is already going up in anticipation.
Yep.
Of their new commander-in-chief.
Yep.
And then you had Oprah herself. Oprah, she'll interview you if you pay her $1 million too. Yeah, so low fee of $1 million to sit down with Oprah Winfrey, apparently. That's what the Harris campaign paid her production company, she said.
That's another thing, too, about how phony Kamala Harris was. Absolute phony. She had to pay all these people like $1 million or $2 million or something like that, so they would toss her these softball questions and she could try to sound intelligent. It's a joke. And people weren't supposed to find out that Oprah was paid $1 million, and a lot of these other celebrities and people who interviewed her were paid $1 million and stuff. People weren't supposed to find that out. But, of course, you do find out because
and for that, you know what you get?
Hello?
You get Oprah yelling at you. Kamala Harris! Why are you doing that? So calm down,
Hello,
madam.
Joe.
The fakest person involved on that side of the aisle was the woman at the top. Kamala Harris herself. Thank you. Who pretended...
Yeah, but I would say that Tim Walz came in a very, very, very close second.
Joe.
That's what I would say.
that she wasn't the border czar, who pretended that she was middle class, who pretended that she was smart, and the American people did not buy it. Every time you turned around, this woman was doing something faker than the last, right? Her fake Jamaican accent, her fake Eastern
European
accent, her fake
Jamaican
Spanish accent. My favorite was the preacher accent. Joy cometh in the morning. She wasn't wrong about that. It came at about 1:22 a.m. on election night, when the election was called for Donald J. Trump.
All right. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right. She said, I can't believe it, guys. Tomorrow at noon, high noon, set the clocks, okay? We got a new president.
Hello.
And this is gonna be wonderful.
Hello,
all right,
Joe.
let me see who's out there. Yeah, I hear you. Hang on one second. I hear John. There he is. How you doing? The commish. Very good to see you. All right, great. Hang in there. Let's see. Go around the horn here. Who else? We got Brian's with us here tonight. Brian, it's good to see you. And you're going to be out there in D.C. tomorrow, correct?
Yes, I'm going to be led by our tour guide, John Plechnik.
Is? Okay, great.
Things have changed a little bit. I'm sure Commissioner Plechnik can fill us in on that.
Okay, things have changed. Real quick, let me see. Leonard, I think, is out there. How you doing, Leonard? Good to see you.
Doing well, sir.
Good.
I'm just praying they can stay warm.
Yeah, are you going to D.C. tomorrow or not? You going to go see the Prez?
In a warm house.
Yeah. Watch it on.
I'll be in my warm house.
Watch it on TV. That's what I say, man. That's exactly what I say. All right, John, how you doing, man? So you're the one are you driving the bus to D.C. or what? What's happening?
No, I'm not quite driving the bus, but I'm going to be leading folks. I was an attorney advisor at the U.S. Tax Court, so I spent 2 years in D.C., and I know how to use the Metro. So based on those qualifications, I'm the tour guide.
Very good.
That
All
said,
right.
for everyone going down to D.C., things have obviously changed. The temperatures are as cold as they were. It's literally the coldest since Reagan's second inauguration. And so President Trump decided to move the festivities indoors. Unfortunately, that means the vast majority of us won't be able to see the swearing in person. Very grateful to Congressman Dave Joyce, who lined up tickets for everyone from Lake County for the outdoor inauguration. But when it got moved indoors, it basically means we're on our own. So we're going to freestyle. We're going to go down to Washington. We're going to see what we can see. And the goal is to get down to Union Station and at the very least find a good place to watch it on a flat screen. But I will tell you, I am happy. I am happy that the official Trump store got me my dark MAGA hat in time for inauguration.
Oh, yeah. That's the Musk hat. Now, I was going to wear a Trump hat, but listen, Buckeyes are playing tomorrow as well. There's a lot going on tomorrow. And I couldn't, it was a tough, do I go to a bar and watch the Buckeyes win the national championship, or do I go and freeze my off in D.C. and watch it on a TV, because you're not going to be able to get it into the place to see it.
Well, Joe, this is how we separate the true believers here, and I give former Mayor Brian Massey credit for joining us. We're going to ride down on the bus. We're leaving at midnight. We're going to get into Maryland at 6 a.m. We're going to ride the Metro into Union Station, and then we're going to do as much as we can to get as close as we can to honor our President Donald Trump. And I have to tell you, as you're watching news coverage, this is what makes me so proud to be an American and so grateful for President Trump's victory. As you're watching the news coverage, you see all these fancy-dancy reporters going, "Why are you coming here? You don't have tickets like a congressman to go to the swearing-in. Why would you waste your time?" And time again, the response they're getting is, "I don't care if I don't have a front row seat. I'm here to support my president, Donald J. Trump, and I'm just happy to be here." And it's just shocking to see how many times the reporters just drop their jaw as people say, ordinary people say over and over again, "I don't care if I don't have a ticket. I'm here to support my president, Donald J. Trump."
Absolutely. That's the way you do it, man. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Thank God we don't have Biden in anymore. Thank God. I just got to hit somebody. I got to hit something. How frustrating that is. All right, we got two great guests tonight. Let's get into Jeff Skinner here. Jeff, how are you, man?
Doing good. Thank you for having me.
All right, you're welcome. We're going to be talking, I think, about North Carolina and the LA fires a little bit and anything else that comes along. But that is just absolutely disgusting and despicable what happened in North Carolina and how these people are being treated. It's crazy. Watch this real quick
A
here.
FEMA temporary housing program that provides free hotel rooms for storm victims ends this weekend.
This is not helping my anxiety and
These are people that have been displaced by FEMA. They have nowhere to go. And this was just like a week ago.
depression.
They all said there was nothing they could do. There was no, you're ineligible and we can't do anything.
I just don't see how it's right. You extend these people, but you don't extend us.
I have nowhere else to go but in the streets.
These are forgotten Americans, by the way. These are forgotten Americans because of the LA fires that have come along. We've forgotten all about North Carolina. These people are still suffering.
I don't know what to do, so I got 2 more days, so I'm going to sit it out, live in my truck.
He's going to live in his truck.
It's like they're not really doing anything, for us.
All right, so anyhow, I want to just to get the ball rolling on some of that. So it's good to see you with the Ohio Roundtable and everything in your Substack article, which was really good. So take us away with this, okay?
Yeah, so I think it's exactly as you pointed out. So California's been getting a lot of news lately, and for good reason. They have an active disaster occurring. But I think people forget that a lot of the infrastructure in North Carolina is still in a state of disrepair. So as your video pointed out, there's FEMA shelters that are kicking out residents right now because they're no longer eligible. Their relief has run out. And these are people that, as some of your listeners may know, FEMA gave a $750 loan to, and that was essentially the extent of their aid relief. So Helene came in, it wiped out bridges, it wiped out roads, it wiped out entire homes and communities. And these people are working class or poor communities. So these are Appalachian territory people, especially in Western North Carolina territory. They do not have the sort of money and resources that I think a lot of residents in California may have. And they're going to be facing an uphill battle when it comes to rebuilding or even where to go right now. There's a good number of people, probably in the hundreds to maybe even thousands, that are displaced by this. A good number of families that I've spoken with from contractors and workers that have been down there, giving me this information, have basically said some of these families are sleeping in their cars, like your video implied, and the aid relief has been the extent of basically going there and trying to provide tents or shelters for them to stay in, to stay warm, which is an upgrade when you're sleeping in the driver's seat of a truck or a 4-door, but it's still not enough. I mean, these are tents with dirt floors. They might be insulated a little bit. They might have space heaters or generators, but it's still not a home. It's not a house. And that's kind of what these people are dealing with. And the uphill battle that they're going to have with rebuilding comes down to an environmental protection legislation that was signed in the 70s called CAMA. And I can go into that if you're interested as well.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So CAMA is an environmental piece of legislation that was passed in, I believe it was 1973, to protect the waterways and marshlands throughout the state. And essentially what this is in order to erect any kind of a structure, you have to go through a permit process. And this permit process, you have to come up with a land plan, how you're going to use the land. It costs money to even get the permit. And then, of course, you have the issue with flood insurance that's going to come with rebuilding. So CAMA stands for the Coastal Area Management Act. And essentially it covers the eastern part of North Carolina and the western part as well. Any territory with a waterway near it, river, creek, etc., is under jurisdiction of CAMA. And most of these properties were grandfathered into the legislation when it was passed in the 70s. So in order to get to the point where they could even have a plan to rebuild, you're going to have to go through that environmental hurdle as well. And if you can even get through that, you're going to have a massive amount of capital to invest in order to get the flood insurance because the premiums on that are going to be insane. So most of these families are looking down the barrel potentially of having to sell their property. And that's already becoming a case, I think, when looking at a lot of properties in California as well. There seems to be this land grab situation going on where these natural disasters, if you want to call them that, will strike. And then insurance companies are not coming through for rebuilding. The environmental protections that are in place prevent rebuilding. And then families are left with no other choice but to either be homeless, leave, and sell their property. And they're not going to be selling it at value. They're going to be selling it, at a significantly decreased cost. And these investment firms that are coming in looking to buy the properties, whether it be in California or North Carolina, these are your big ones. These are BlackRock, investment. And who knows what they're looking to do. I mean, we all know, in my opinion, what they're planning with that Agenda 2030 concept of we'll own nothing and be happy. So, it's a significant concern right now. So there's aid relief going on. There's an Ohio group, several Ohio groups actually, but going down there, local church groups, donating money, donating time.
Because the government isn't really doing anything, is it? The government is not doing it, and then these other people are stepping in. Here's something from Real America's Voice. This is Ben Bergquam, and this is just from, I think, yesterday or the day before. It's very, very
down
recent.
Here in Clyde, North Carolina, just to get a sense of the devastation. We're doing this road to the inauguration. I'm here with my family heading to Washington, D.C., making several stops, in particular in places that have been abandoned by this current administration, and looking forward to President Trump taking office. But just to give you an idea of the devastation, this was a mobile home park here. You can see mobile homes back in the distance there. Everywhere between those mobile homes and the road were other mobile homes. All of them got washed out down the river. And when you look at the height of the water line where this was, I'm standing below water. My head is below water right now. All of these washed out. This is where many of the deaths occurred here in Clyde. There are still places that have still not received any help. Zero help from the federal government. There are still places that are still inaccessible that people can't get out of and people can't get into. What's shocking to me is he told me FEMA's last number here in Clyde, the total deaths are 4. He asked me, how many do you think it is? He said 4. I said, what, 400? He said, no, 4. They're saying there was only 4 deaths. This entire mobile home park was wiped out, washed down the river. Many bodies never found. And they're saying there was only 4 people that died here.
That's crazy. FEMA is telling everybody only 4 deaths
and this is just
from
one.
all of that.
There's another one down the way. Multiple houses ripped off their foundations all along the rivers here. It's truly catastrophic.
Yeah, pretty disgusting. I'm going to go to some of you guys. Brian, do you have anything for Jeff Skinner here? And that's just so disgusting to hear what the government is not doing for these North Carolinian people.
Yeah, when he said 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. Again, that's the mantra that that we hear, coming from the EU and the European globalists. We're going to use that because I think it is so true. So for BlackRock and all of those other companies to come in and to benefit on the backs of those poor people, it's reprehensible and it's demonic as far as I'm concerned. I appreciate Jeff coming on board. He's such a great writer, and whatever Jeff says, I'm right on board with it.
Yeah, without a doubt. So Jeff, I just want to play that little clip there so that we can visualize what's going on there. Now, he did say that there were other mobile park units further down. I guess thousands and thousands of people and homes and mobile structures have washed away. I mean, this is big.
Yeah, and I think it's worse than that. So the video, the person in that had said that the official count was 4 in that area. There are still hundreds of people missing. And the issue is that at first the federal government, FEMA, and their relief efforts were preventing private citizens from flying drones, and they weren't doing it themselves either. So they weren't even looking to do search and rescue. It's gotten to the point where now the federal government is completely uninvolved in the area. If they were ever there to begin with, I think is in question. But now your local governments are creating a hurdle. So now your jurisdictions, whether that's your township trustees or your governors, from what I'm hearing, they're not putting forth much effort to do much search and rescue either. A lot of local police and firemen are helping private citizens do searches outside of their work hours. So they're doing their shift, they're coming off, and now they're doing searches to help citizens try to locate their family members or pets, etc. So it's abysmal. And Brian, I think you're right on the money. I think as far as I'm concerned, how those people have been treated is evil and demonic. And profiting off of them is as bad as you can get, but there are still, at this point, they're lost. I think it's a safe assumption. But the fact that we are having to send private church groups there to do search and rescue operations is abysmal. That should never happen in the United States of America.
Yeah, but they're looking so much out for the people in California, in L.A., because these people are rich, they're famous. That's where all of the attention is going to. They've forgotten about the people in North Carolina. That's why we want to rehash this a little bit. Now, here's what Biden said. He said, "I'm announcing that the federal government will cover 100% of the cost and measures to protect lives and property." Where? In Southern California for 6 months. He's going to cover all the costs. Now, this is one of the most affluent areas there is. Can you imagine how much that's going to be? He says, "I've told the governor and the officials to spare no expense and do whatever they need to contain the fires and protect the families." That's all well and good. But what are they giving the people in North Carolina? They give the people in North Carolina, what, $750? That's no way to run a... you with us, John, or did you have to leave? John might have had to leave. I'm sorry to hear that.
It looks like John's frozen. But I'll tell you what, I've got some comments.
All right, what do you got there? What do you got there, Jonathan? So what do you think? We're talking about that North Carolina whole incident there.
We're talking about all of it. You brought in Southern California, and candidly, I don't think most of the people in Southern California are going to get diddly squat. I think that's in my book. Mark my words, I've been watching this. By the way, anybody that would like commentary on BlackRock and their role, find me at unwoke.academy. We talk at length. On the BlackRock thing, just a quick little aside. One of the many times I got myself in major big trouble. I was actually hired to work on Wall Street in 2008. In 2008, I got in really big trouble by pointing out some behaviors around funneling pension dollars into BlackRock. I was threatened with legal action and stuff. This was 2008. BlackRock's been around doing bad things for a long time, and they're not the only one. But there's some interesting commentary circulating around what's expected in Southern California, and it's not good. I'm just going to leave it at that. But getting back to North Carolina and these other places that, in contrast, are thoroughly ignored, almost 100% ignored by FEMA and federal agencies, it's ridiculous. But I have a question that I want to put out there, because we keep hearing about the circumstances there, and it's dire. Those people who are left, who are alive, they're literally really harassed by government agencies. There are people that had some Amish come in, just a few examples. There were people that started living in tents, and then government agencies apparently were going in and telling them that if they were living in those conditions, that it was unsafe for the children, so they threatened to take their children away. Then Amish came in apparently and were building small structures for them to live in. At least there was a space that they could heat and live in, and set some cots up and everything. But then apparently the Department of zoning construction, some cockamamie stuff, came in and said that they're not built up to some sort of local code, and said that because the structures weren't built to code, they couldn't stand there. My question is this: for some of those people does it make sense for we, the people, the rest of the United States, to open some doors, to maybe go and get some of those people, retrieve them from those spaces, and move them temporarily into extra rooms and houses elsewhere? Is that happening? I'm not hearing that it's happening, and I think it should be, for those people who aren't still there searching for loved ones. And if it isn't happening, what can we do to move the needle on that, to get neighboring communities to get some of those people, because they need to get somewhere where they can put a roof over their children's heads, get some food on the table, get a shower, for goodness sakes, and get out from under those horrible circumstances.
What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, something like that is an interesting idea. I think it could be, good. I also think that we need to have a longer conversation about where our priorities are as a country. So I think the thing that I find the most frustrating about this situation is that we have no problem finding billions and billions of dollars every month to send to a foreign country. We do that all the time. But we can't find any money or any reserve to tap into from the tax coffers that we pay into to help our own people. And that, I think, is the most abysmal part about this whole scenario. Is it's not a matter of having the capital, it's about the matter of having the will. And our government does not have the will to do anything about this. And that is really sad and dysfunctional. But I think the other thing that I wanted to point out, because you're talking about California, you said that you think, and I agree with you, Jonathan, I think that the majority of people in that area are not going to see much relief effort. And the reason for that is that California sits on one of the largest lithium deposits in the world, which is needed for ion batteries, which are used in a lot of tech manufacturing, especially lithium powered, EV cars and that sort of stuff. So I think it's very likely that most of the properties, you're going to run into the same issues in California that you're running into in North Carolina, which is the lower income families and people are not going to be able to rebuild their homes. They'll have to sell, and it'll probably be an investment firm that picks it up and starts digging those deposits out. And when they do that, it's going to help those large tech companies to develop their wares. But you're going to have another influx of homeless people like you're seeing across the country. And, I think it's a good idea to have some kind of relief effort or place where we can put these people. But at the same time, I want everybody listening to think about the fact that this is also about homeland. These are people that this is their homeland. This is where their families have been born. This is where their grandfathers settled and where they are settling. So multiple generations go back into this Appalachian territory. And I don't think it's that easy just to leave that. I think that means something to these people. And I think it should mean something to us as well. And if we're going to continue paying, billions and billions of trillions of dollars, I think it's 4.4 trillion is what the government takes in every year from us, then some of that needs to go to supporting our people here.
Yeah. Well, let's not forget that they give all that billions and billions to the Ukraine war. I think the government accounting agency lost $8 billion that they couldn't account for. So when you look at the inefficiency of our government, it's crazy, okay? It's absolutely crazy. But this has to be deliberate, all right? This has to be deliberate to the North Carolina people. I mean, I don't see how else you can come up with any other thought on that. Joe, the government, why would they do that? Now, I know Biden's leaving, and he's mentally gone. He's already left mentally. But I don't know how they could justify it. It's not just that these are all Republican voters. There's a lot of Democrat voters. They don't care, though. That's the head scratcher there.
Yeah, they don't care. But Joe, just really quickly interjecting, looking at the sequence, looking at the string of events, I think it's too easy and too simplified to simply look at any given event and wonder about that and the result. That's too surface level. When you see a sequence of events, and over the last 4 years, we've seen a sequence of horrible events and consistently the same non-response and ignoring non-action from our government. So the first thing is I want to point out so we don't lose sight of I forget the name of the bridge in the Baltimore area and East Palestine and Lahaina, Hawaii. These are not, any one of them by itself is an unusual event. And I'm not, for the purposes of this discussion, stringing them together. But I would be a fool at this point, considering what we know about what is being funded, what isn't, and the nefarious, consistent bad actions of actors like BlackRock, to ignore the possibility that there are connections and look for dots. That's where I am, and that's what we're doing at Unwoke Academy. We're the follow the money people. We do a lot of that sort of thing. But also I want to go back to what we're choosing to fund and what we're not funding. And it has been a consistent theme for those of us who are impatient and care about our fellow Americans to have noted, going back my lifetime and prior, that we do a horribly insufficient job of providing for our veterans. So yes, I absolutely think and know in my heart that our government and our tax dollars should be wisely spent to provide for those people who are damaged by the storm in North Carolina and Southern California and other places. But in addition to that, we have been doing a consistently horrible job of providing for those who provide for us, and that's our veterans. I have a major issue with that, and I want to pause to point that out as well. Thank you.
Gotcha. Very good. Hey, listen, I gotta play this for you guys. Speaking of the L.A. fires, okay, this is the fire chief.
Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire. You couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Yeah, okay, so Leonard, I want to get your take on something here. You know, if you want to just comment on that last fire chief, that lady there, if you're stuck in a fire, she ain't pulling you out because you got yourself stuck in there. So ridiculous. But anyhow, we just aren't hearing anything about what's going on in North Carolina. The attention is everything on L.A., but these people are displaced. They've lost their homes. They're as distraught as it can get, you know, and the government ain't doing a dang thing.
Yeah, I understand. One of the problems that we have as a society is that charity is not the role of the government. It belongs to us. Now, why do I say that? There are three ordained governments by God. There's the family, there's the church, and the state. If you look at it in terms of a pictorial, there's three circles here. The family is the biggest circle, the church is the next biggest circle, and the state is the smallest or civil of all the governments that have been ordained by God. Now, here's what's supposed to happen. The church right now is so heavily minded, no earthly good. All right, so they missed the boat when they didn't read Genesis. But the bottom line is going back to where Jonathan was going with this. Every church across the nation should be figuring out ways how we're going to raise money, get some money down into those people, put them in places where they can have food and shelter and to take care of those families. That should be our priority. So what has happened is, like I said, we love to talk about salvation, but as my grandma would say, you got to put some feet on those prayers. And I've only had one church since in my surrounding that has even broached this subject. And the rest of them I have to go and ask, are you guys doing anything? This is how bad it is. So this, to me, when I look at this, the more we keep relying on the federal, the more we're going to expect these type of things to occur. And we have to stop digging the hole and say, look, enough's enough. And what we have to do with our legislators is to educate them, to tell them, look, you need to understand your role, because even the people that I talk to in the legislature don't even know their roles correctly. and all they're doing the life out of us, and we're not getting anything for it, and that has to stop.
Yeah. No, very good. Yeah, there's a lot to this. There's a lot of meat on this bone. Yeah, hey, I got to throw something at you, Jeff. This is frightening to me, but next month, it'll be 2 years since the East Palestine derailment. Isn't that mind-boggling? It seems like just yesterday. I mean, to me, it seems like just yesterday, that train derailment, and next month it's going to be 2 years. Wow, where's the time go? But that's something, again, that was more of a local issue, not so much national, although, yeah, it was national as well, I guess. They really dropped the ball on that. People were suffering like crazy in East Palestine, Ohio, because of that train derailment and all that toxic chemical and the fumes and everything. And that got brushed under the table, kind of, so to speak, as well. So what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on anything here, or if you like to hear about it?
Yeah, well, I think at this point, if you'd for those who have followed the situation both in hearings and otherwise, it's pretty apparent at this point that the vent and burn, which I won't call it a controlled burn because they did not control for oxygen saturation, which is the definition of a controlled burn. The failure to do so when you're dealing with some of those chemicals creates dioxins, which are incredibly toxic chemicals. They're called forever chemicals. They last in the soil and water for hundreds to thousands of years, and they're not going anywhere. And they're significantly damaging to the human body. So with that, I think it's very apparent that it was intentional. It was not an accidental situation, or hey, the tanks are going to blow, we have to make a decision immediately. The company that rented the tank from Norfolk Southern had stated that the vinyl chloride was treated so that it wouldn't catch fire or combust. So you have treated vinyl chloride, which is not at risk for explosion. Why did they then vent and burn the chemicals? Well, it's because it was easier to clear the tanks off the tracks so that Norfolk Southern could get more rail cars down the line. So it was in my opinion, I think it's very obvious that Norfolk Southern intentionally convinced a volunteer fire department to make a split-second decision with faulty information so that they could get the tracks cleared and get more train cars going down the line. And that put the entire community at risk. There are still people today that have health effects from it. The water is not clean. The soil is not clean. And businesses have not really recouped their losses. A lot of them are having to sell their properties down there as well. So it's not a situation that's done by any stretch of the term.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, can I just interject something?
That's the other thing. Just to piggyback for a second, and Jonathan, I'll let you talk here in a second. But we've got J.D. J.D. Vance is a U.S. senator. Now we've got John Husted as a U.S. senator. So both these guys are brand new. We're the only state that has two brand new, spanking new U.S. senators, which is interesting because they don't really have any kind of, what would you call, seniority or anything like that. But that's okay. They're good guys. They're good people. But I judge, if you want to judge John Husted, this is just, and he was doing stuff prior to being a U.S. senator. We got to stop. There's got to be term limits, just pure term limits, period. And called public servant, all right? He's been a public servant, which is a joke, okay? Which is kind of a joke.
That's a nice gig if you can get it.
Yeah, that's a great gig if you can get it. All right, Jonathan, do you want to throw a question to Jeff?
Actually, so I was going to throw a question in there, as I was actually looking for a post on X that I forwarded and commented on earlier today that had to do with BlackRock's activities and their connections. But actually, while trying to find that, I opened X on my phone, and I saw something from somebody that I ended up connected with on X. I'm looking it up on Weather Channel right now to confirm this. But somebody posted that temperatures in Asheville, North Carolina are projected to get below zero tonight, which would be sort of extraordinary, I think, for North Carolina. I'm not actually seeing that online. It may not be true, but I wonder if anybody else is hearing what's happening with temperatures, because that's a big concern right now for these people that really, they have no place to live. My understanding, there's still people basically living in tents, or they've got camping supplies to keep them alive on their properties. My heart goes out, and getting back to something that Leonard said about the value and worth of our churches, be praying. Pray for these people. Pray that they're able to weather this cold and the storm and everything our government is throwing at them and not doing to help. But I guess to put it in the form of a question, is anybody else hearing of life-threatening temperatures and weather in North Carolina right now?
How about Jeff? Jeff, what do you think about all that? Because there are a lot of people in tents right now. They lost their mobile home, or they lost their physical structured home. They have nowhere to go. They're getting kicked out of the motels, or they never qualified to go into a motel because there was so much red tape from FEMA to even qualify to go into a motel. So what do you think of that? I mean, these guys are going to freeze tonight because it is going to get cold in North Carolina.
Yeah, I think that's a potential. I think that's why it's important that we take action and try to intervene as fast as possible, or as some of you kind of pointed out, reach out to your local church, because they seem to be the only ones that are doing anything in these situations. The insulated tents that a lot of these people have are pretty good quality. Most of them have generators now. I think that was the crux of the relief effort. A lot of people had generators delivered, and that powers your space heaters to kind of keep them warm. But when you're talking about 0 degree, negative degree weather, it's a little bit different. It's very, very hard to keep warm during those situations. We're going to be facing that here in the next couple of days. It's also a problem for Springfield, Ohio right now. Over at just not to jump ship too much, but on the OhioRegister.com, just put up an article on the Springfield commissioners have prevented citizens from dropping off firewood to the homeless encampments around Snyder Park and Buck Creek, which is an issue because a lot of these families have been displaced by the Haitian influx. Rising property values and rent prices have kicked them out of their domiciles, so now they are homeless. And these are, Springfield natives and residents that are now living in tents. And the Springfield commissioners don't like the way it looks. So they tell people, they called the police on them. Police, in a recorded video, let slip that it was the commissioners ordering them to stop the firewood delivery. So significant problems, I think, not just in North Carolina, but across the country, even here in Ohio. As our temperatures drop, people living out there on the streets are facing, some hazardous conditions.
Yeah, without a doubt. I couldn't imagine being outside here in Cleveland Heights in a tent. I don't care how well insulated the tent is. I couldn't imagine that. My house is cold enough as it is. Well, yeah. All right. So, well, thanks again, Jeff. I want to appreciate you stopping by and reminding us about North Carolina. And when I read that on your Substack page, you got a great one, the Heartland Beat Substack page, which is great. I recommend everybody go to that, the Heartland Beat on Substack, and you got some great articles and everything. So we got just wanted you to fill us in on that, and we got to have you back again sooner than later. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Jeff.
Thanks a lot.
No problem. Thanks for having me. And
Thank you.
anyone who wants to check out more stuff can check out the OhioRegister.com as well if you want to be one of our writers. So thanks.
The Ohio Register. If you want to be a writer, will do. I know I wouldn't qualify for that, any kind of writing or anything. Forget it. All right, we've got John Jacobson's going to be coming on here in just a few minutes, all the way from Iowa. I bet it's cold in Iowa because they usually are colder than we are. And we're going to talk all about Trump's inauguration and everything. But Kent, are you out there?
Yep.
Let's talk about our own channel here for a minute because we need people. We need
Yeah,
people
make sure
to follow us on Ohio
we're,
Political News.
Yeah,
All
we're
right.
on Rumble, YouTube, X, Facebook, the gamut of social media. And also, if you go to ohiopoliticalnews.com and go to shop, you can go into our merch. And if you need a hoodie, especially for the game tomorrow night, you can check out JD Vance. Ohio State versus Michigan. There's only one VP. And,
Now that is a
Ohio
great
State's
idea. That
leading
is a great idea. You can get that right there. Vice President, we have him. Michigan doesn't. Okay, that's what that means. 1-0, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. And so so we have that, and it's all anything else. We also have the Bucky, the bear. We kind of have a mascot for the logo and all that, and you can also pick up for your kids or anything. We also have women's t-shirts, and we'll have the hoodies for everybody too. We will also be doing, if we maybe go back a couple pages, also the property guys. We have a bunch of other stuff on there. But also, if you go and you're on live right now on Rumble, you can also rant, chat in the chat box. You can give us a Rumble rant, and that is a huge support. Or subscribe to our Rumble channel. That's also a big help. Also, make sure to share this. It's more just follow us, but then also the share the program is a huge help, because then people will find us. That's what we're trying to do. So, and then we have also the property guys, and there's a bunch of different shirts, and anyone with their wives with baking. We have anything. We definitely have also hats, mugs.
The mugs. Got the mugs.
Yes. And make sure you check that out. But we are on all different social media platforms. We will be live streaming tomorrow around 10 a.m. I will be popping on, having everybody, if hopefully Brian can zoom in, and we can chat with Brian and everybody. But check it out, and we need the support. It does cost money to do this, to have Brian and Leonard to go out live streaming, or if we're out live streaming. It does take also that, and to do this every week. So any kind of support, we would appreciate it.
Yes, any kind of help, we definitely want to do that. And then we got John Jacobson coming on in just a second. But Brian, you're going to be out in D.C. tomorrow, right?
Yes, we are going to be out in D.C. We are leaving tonight at midnight from Lake County, and I think we arrive 6 or 6:30 in the morning. I think we're then have to go onto a metro to take us into D.C. So that will be that'll be all new for me. I've never been in the metro, so. And then, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to go to the arena. I thought, because we had tickets, that we were going to be in the arena, and I was planning on live streaming from the inside the arena. But
so
we will be
outside.
live streaming from the Dubliner.
Yeah. Where do you think you're going to watch
in
this
the Union
at?
Station.
Where do you think you'll be to watch the event? Any idea?
Well, we'll probably be at some coffee shop or bar in Union Station.
So you got to go all the way to D.C. to go to a coffee shop.
We could have done that in Lake County.
Go all the way to D.C. to a coffee shop and then watch it on their TV. Yeah, I understand. But hey, I salute you, man. Going all the way down there, that's awesome. Last time I went on a bus ride with you to D.C., all hell broke out. Literally.
Yeah, well, this is the bookends.
That was the last inauguration, kind of. It was January 6th. That's the last time I went with you on a bus ride. Of course, there were like 300 of us that all went. And we had it was an interesting time, I gotta say. So
It certainly was.
All right, we got John Jacobs here tonight. How are you, John? You can turn your camera sideways if you want. You want to try that? There you go. Awesome, man.
How we doing there?
Are you in a library or is that your den?
I am. This is the Jacobson Home Library.
Oh.
Speaking of mugs,
yeah,
I have
look at
a
that.
wonderful mug from you gentlemen there. And I'm going to give a greeting to our audience tonight, as they would maybe do over in Rome. I'm going to appropriate the language and say, Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum. I announce to the people great joy. Donald Trump, the ultimate comeback story. The man who wrote Art of the Deal, don't forget, he wrote Art of the Comeback. And what a tremendous day it's going to be tomorrow.
Well, you probably missed this, John, but this was the final interview of Joe Biden. Joe Biden did an interview on MSNBC. Like, virtually nobody watched it, okay?
Yeah.
They had 97,000 viewers in the 25 to 54 category, but this is 19 seconds of it, okay? That's all I could stomach. 19.
Way in debt and don't have the infrastructure to capacity to build the infrastructure.
You can't even speak for 19 seconds, for crying out loud.
And so that's why, remember when they said, well, we'll never get an infrastructure bill? Well,
Listen, I said you'd never get an infrastructure bill. With my legislative
The
experience.
guy is totally, I mean, come on. Dementia
Joe Miller,
has taken its toll.
I can summarize this in one sentence. Bringing Joe Biden in for a valedictory interview is the equivalent of giving an encore to Yoko Ono.
Yoko Ono's better.
Don't go away mad, Joe. Just go away. He's going out kicking and screaming. But oh my goodness, the internecine warfare now that is broken out between the Bidens and the Harrises and the Pelosi's and the Schumers. It's just going to be a rhetorical knife fight for these people utterly without honor over the next 4 years. They lost big time. They had it rigged about every way they could, and not even 34 trumped up felonies, no pun intended, could derail the president. This is the mercy of God that has allowed this to happen. And I know there's disappointment with some of the folks that didn't get into the venues tomorrow. But let's just talk turkey here and say what's going on. There's historical precedent for pared down inaugurations. Unfortunately, they always happen to the Republican Party, which means the insurrectionists usually tend to be on the left. Let's take a walk down memory lane. 1860, Abraham Lincoln is elected president of the United States. His Democrat opponents were filled with such invective hatred against him that, Lincoln was a clean-shaven man all through the Lincoln-Douglas debates and all through the presidential election there years later. Lincoln had to grow that beard to try to smuggle incognito, under cover of darkness at night to get sworn into D.C. so that he would not get physically eliminated. And obviously there were grounds for that concern. We know what happened to poor President Lincoln 5 years later. Fast forward, Teddy Roosevelt giving a speech, finishes the speech. Gerald Ford never got an inauguration. I feel like red buttons on the old Dean Martin roasts. Never got a testimonial banquet. Gerald Ford never got an inauguration. And Ronald Reagan, after winning 50 states, yes, I said 50. The history books say 49, but I believe he won Minnesota. After his 50-state sweep in 1984, his second inauguration was brought indoors due to the cold in 1985 in the Capitol Rotunda. Security reasons. They didn't want people to get a second chance at harming President Reagan. He miraculously survived. Obviously, there are threats that we don't know about. They're not trying to instill fear in the public, but this inauguration has been winnowed down from a traditional outdoor inauguration to a Capitol Rotunda inauguration, which has subsequently been windowed down even from there. There are rumors out there that President Trump has already taken the oath of office, so that would automatically now activate. According to the Constitution, if you've taken the oath, with ceremony or not, at 11 a.m. Central, because we're counting the hours out here in the Central time frame, noon Eastern, he constitutionally automatically becomes President of the United States. He doesn't need to be on TV or radio or even doing it ceremonially.
So it doesn't have to be
at noon.
It doesn't have to be at 12 noon. You're saying he could have already taken the oath. Hey, let me ask you this.
Yes. There are rumors that he has done so, which means he would automatically just become president at noon tomorrow. That he's already taken the oath.
But he's already taken the oath.
I think for his standpoint,
John, quick question here.
Yeah.
Quick question that you're on this. I want to get this out. I've heard about drones trying to assassinate him. Any truth, do you think, to that? And is that why they moved it indoors? Not because of the cold, because his life was in danger.
His limousine now has anti-droning defenses built up. And, of course, you're talking 500,000 people possibly out there on the mall. You cannot possibly screen in frigid temperatures for that kind of a crowd. It's hard enough in an indoor facility. And, the nice thing, maybe instead of John Roberts having to administer the oath, maybe Clarence Thomas got to do it. Now, remember, there were 2 oaths taken in 2008. Obama took 2 oaths because John Roberts flubbed the first oath. It didn't count. He did not have President Obama recite the constitutional oath of office, which I learned in 2nd grade. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, defend the Constitution of the United States. Roberts flubbed it up. They literally had to do a redo the next day in private, away from cameras, to vouch for the fact that Obama was legitimately installed as president. There's John Roberts for you, okay? And what I think Trump has done, it shows you what kind of man he is. He's revise, adapt, overcome. It was fascinating last night. So they brought the grand fireworks. It was magnificent last night. Tremendous fireworks program at his National Country Club right outside of D.C. And, I've got friends out there in D.C. right now. They're going to get shut out a lot of the events. But one of my friend's sons, who is in one of the marching bands, was to play in the inaugural parade down Pennsylvania Avenue. He got to perform last night at the National Country Club. And it's on Trump's territory, where he also has some say-so over security. And if you'll notice, today, it was a great rally today. It was in D.C., but it was on Trump's terms. It wasn't in government facilities. It was a Trump event. You guys, pulling in from Right Side Broadcasting or certainly can. Great event. Trump, I think what he needs to do is what Reagan did with Rancho del Cielo, his Western White House, with what Richard Nixon did at San Clemente with his friend Bibi Rebozo. I think if you take a look at even the history of John Kennedy at Hyannis Port, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, for crying out loud, in Warm Springs, you don't have to be in D.C. to govern. And I think the president should establish his post at Mar-a-Lago and not stay in the swamp permanently. The only downer that I see about this whole thing, I've been railing on the rhinos in the U.S. Senate that have already done damage in squawking about Trump's cabinet appointees. And here's the facts, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you the brutal facts. We have had a Republican Senate now since the new year. President Trump takes office tomorrow with only one confirmed cabinet secretary. This shows you what slugs, how lethargic, incompetent, lazy, and timid these rhinos in the U.S. Senate are. And I don't think President Trump's biggest problem is going to be the Democrats. His biggest problem, again, is he going to have to face down the type of crap, utter crap, that he had to deal with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan in 2017. This stuff better end, because
No,
people
there's
are
a mandate
behind
by the
Trump.
people. We're not going to put up with that crap. We are not
did
going to
you
put
see-
up with that.
Yep.
Joe, did you see the CBS poll? Those numbers are through the roof. CBS, who hates Trump, that poll that came out, he's at 60% approval, 60% excited. Whites, blacks, Latinos, Republicans, independents, by huge margins, men and women. There is no gender gap. He's got a double-digit lead with women on his approval and excitement about the next 4 years. College educated, high school educated. Every age demographic, Trump's up among 18 to 29-year-olds. Donald Trump is at 67%. See, people have rediscovered, it's like a boy that dates a girl, and, the girl's impressed with the boy, and then she's got these mean girl friends that say the boy's no good and they break up, and she rediscovers he was a good guy all the time, and that the people whispering in her ear were the bad guys. Americans are starting to realize that we were lied to by everybody. The lawfare corruption, the media lies, the false Russian collusion. I think it's fascinating today that Ron DeSantis actually came out and called Schiff a traitor. So the worm has turned. There's a huge vibe shift. And it's like right out of the Godfather movie. They're all coming into Marlon Brando, Don Corleone to kiss the ring. My goodness, Zuckerberg is begging for favors for 3 hours. The worm has turned, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, yeah, Zuckerberg and Bezos. I don't know. You can name them all. They're coming. Brian, you have a question for John. John is really, really knows everything about politics. It's amazing. I love having him on. But go, Yenny?
I'm just old.
Yeah, I'm really amazed. I'm amazed with what he knows. John, do you know if Adam Schiff, did he get a pardon from Biden?
Not yet, but we won't be safe until noon tomorrow. There's still over 12 hours of damage that can be inflicted. And I know some of those folks are begging for a pardon. Even now, I think maybe Schiff has said that he doesn't want one, but there are some that would really like a pardon. And I think, it's well known, Liz Cheney is very nervous.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I think an investigation has been called for of that J6 committee by the current Congress. They think some things were done that shouldn't have been done, and it would be interesting to be seen if there was any witness tampering or destruction of evidence. I'm not.
Couldn't happen to a nicer lady. Could not happen to a nicer lady.
It's the
worst.
It's interesting, is what I will say. These people thought they would never lose. That's the thing. They literally thought that they had a stranglehold on this, and they were so mocked. I mean, only divine intervention can explain this. From Trump's life being saved on a miracle head turn by a nanosecond, by a millimeter. I mean, that was the difference. That's divine intervention. And then all the lawfare, 34 felonies. If you'd have bet in Vegas after 34 felonies, if Donald Trump would have won a landslide victory, it shows how resilient he is. He's the most resilient man, I think, in the history of the 21st century, without a doubt, maybe the 20th century. And if you look at, he's now assembled a decent team. He doesn't have those old hacks like Mark Milley and Mad Dog Mattis and John Kelly. I wouldn't let those guys play the board game Risk and be my generals. And I think that now we're done with that. And I will tell you the hidden gem. He's so good that he might have trouble getting confirmed. But Robert Kennedy has the goods.
Oh, absolutely.
Murderous, homicidal murder for hire that was going on during COVID that involved our government and big pharma and big hospitals. And there's got to be a reckoning in justice. And we've got to prevent this from ever happening again. The Stalinist suffocation of free speech. And, I don't know how many more lives I could have saved during COVID with my truthful and scientifically accurate commentaries about ivermectin and concerns about some of the clot shot effects. And, I kept getting censored one way or another, or, shadow banned or whatever the case may be. There were medical studies that they were purging. And for a while, you couldn't even get on X and Twitter. And many people died because people in government lied.
You couldn't say anything. You could say
death
nothing
by
against COVID. You could say nothing against COVID, and you were blackballed immediately for saying anything against COVID.
Joe, I called for Anthony Fauci's firing. I called for his firing. I was in the legislature. I publicly called for his firing in March of 2020. And I had Republicans jump in my case. Oh, you can't criticize him. He's Trump's team. Well, you know what? He was Mike Pence's team. Mike Pence was the COVID czar, if you remember correctly.
Yeah, Pence was Pence. And I like that mug, too. I like that mug you drink.
I do, too. Really, get your mugs from these guys.
I really like that.
High-quality mugs. Hey, I've lost weight since then now. I got to get a skinnier face on this mug.
Awesome. Oh, I came in with my tea, but I don't have that mug. I'm not going to hold up this other one. It's not as tasty. My drink is not as good as it is in my Ohio Political News mug. All right, so John, thanks for joining us. Let's start with the most important first. I noticed that you have a book with the title "Kirk versus Spock" in the background.
I do.
I do. Thing to start with. That's spectacular. I'm a big sci-fi fan. I wrote that down. I have to find that book. But actually, so getting serious here. The first thing is, I have to key up for everybody. We're talking about one of the major phases of the next battle, and that's the rhinos in the Republican Party. If you're in Ohio, come and find me. We have been running Ohio Rhino Hunters for about 2.5 years now. We have a new logo actually set to launch this week. We've got all kinds of great plans to out the Ohio rhinos. Stay tuned. Follow us. Find us on social media.
I need to tap into your brain power because Joni Ernst went wobbly both on Gates and on Hegseth. And it was only when the Iowans literally rose up and basically they were shell-shocked in the Ernst headquarters. But it shows how out of touch they were. See, these Senate rhinos think people voted for them in the election. They don't realize that Trump won and the only reason they got reelected was on his coattails. But we have people like Ernst and McConnell and Thune and Cornyn.
Yeah.
So you don't like
Susan
Thune.
Collins.
You don't like
and
Thune.
Lisa Murkowski and Tom Tillis. No, I don't.
Yeah, but why did Trump go with Thune at the head of the Senate? And everybody's saying the guy's a pure rhino.
Well, you've only got so much political capital to use. You can't fight every war. Frankly, again, I think, if Luca Brazzi's coming in kissing your ring, you can work with that, And I think some of these folks are realizing, unlike McConnell and unlike Paul Ryan, it does make a difference that all the deeds in the dark of the left have been exposed, showing the total falsity of the Russia collusion thing, that all these Republicans were holding their breath for 2 years thinking that Trump somehow would be implicated, and we realized it was actually a Democratic plan. And I think they do want to get reelected, and they realize Trump won an electoral landslide. Not only that, he won the popular vote. Remember this. The Republicans have only won the popular vote once between 1988, which was Reagan's third term when H.W. Bush won, and this current election. Won the popular vote majority one time. This was huge that Trump did that. Trump has reassembled a governing Republican coalition, and these guys have figured out that makes a huge difference. I think Trump coming in with the mother of all mandates, an unprecedented Republican mandate in a generation. We're talking now Reagan-era swagger, such that, remember, in 1980, I remember Ronald Reagan telling the Iranians, "You've held our hostages for a year, several hundred of them. I'm taking over, and if those hostages aren't released by the time I take office, there will be hell to pay." And I remember Ronald Reagan getting sworn in, as the network news official said, and the American hostages are on a plane on their way back to America from Iran. Look, we had a limited but momentum Israeli-Hamas deal for hostages that began to be implemented today. I go back to the Trump presser from a week ago, where he said 5 times, if we do not have a hostage deal on the day I take the oath of office, he said there will be hell to pay. There will be hell to pay. He said that not once, twice, thrice. He said that 5 times. They got the message.
They got the message. They definitely got the message. And I'll tell you, yeah, that brings back memories of Ronald Reagan and that incompetent Jimmy Carter, who was like Jimmy Biden. Carter. Nobody feared the guy. What a disgrace Carter was, too.
He almost train wrecked. He was not only, up until recently, our worst president, but he was a really rotten meddler post-presidency. You know, everyone says, oh, isn't that nice he's building houses? He was cutting the Achilles heels of Bill Clinton in North Korea when he was cutting a side deal with the dictator up there. Jimmy Crater was a disaster. And he train wrecked the American economy. He let the Russians march across the world. He lost Iran. And every problem in the Mideast that we've had now vexing us for a generation, I hang at the feet of Jimmy Carter.
He was the worst. Absolute worst. We go on with him forever.
He was the worst. Yeah. But now he's been outdone twice.
Hey, but how about that cabinet he had? We had Hannibal Jerkin and Jody Powell, and Brother Billy was urinating on the White House lawn with Billy Beer, and we had Burt Lance. Remember him getting run out of town? And,
Billy Beer. I remember that.
Don't keep going. We've got enough current bad memories. But wait a minute. I have to interject.
Remember when he whacked the killer rabbit with the oar in the pond and the fishing trip? There was a killer rabbit coming toward him that he had to. We don't know if the rabbit was deterred and missed a head blow or not, but it was just a debacle.
His whole presidency was a debacle. But I have to interject this because I want to keep pointing this out so that we, the people, don't lose sight of this. We've got all these pardons happening from the Biden administration. It's not Biden. Let's stop saying Biden is doing anything. He hasn't decided anything. It's the people. Biden's handlers have been stacking up all of these pardons that have gone out to his son and numerous other people. But people, listen to me. Listen up. Those pardons are limited. Those are federal pardons. Those have nothing to do with state crimes. Every state out there with a state attorney general worth anything should be looking at the crimes these people have committed. They do not
14th Amendment. You can bring those to states by the 14th Amendment. You get the gold star for the night.
We need to be bringing those same charges. Those charges we're clamoring for with these horrible miscreants in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere. Bring those charges and get those people, the ones that have been released, get them back in jail on new charges. Bring state-level charges against all of them. Anything you can dream up. Remember, it was the mafia guy. Why am I forgetting
Capone, they got for tax
Al
evasion.
Capone, good gracious. It's been a long weekend. Al Capone was put in prison because of a cigarette tax law. That was the first thing that was the needle to fall. We can find things that these people have done to bring state-level charges and get these people in prison. I mean, just look. I know I'm going to open up a can of worms when I bring up O.J. Simpson because, oh my gosh, that was the political divide and the racial divide and everything. There are people that feel that O.J. Simpson actually committed murder and got away with it. But remember, later, O.J. Simpson committed a crime and served out, I forget how many years, 15 years in prison. My point in saying all of this stuff is people don't give up. I think the terrible miscreants, the awful people in D.C., Biden and otherwise, would love to have us roll over on all of these terrible people like Hunter Biden. Don't do it. Bring state-level charges.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, let me get
what's fascinating. That's how they went after Trump. That's how they went after Trump.
Yeah, hang on a second, John. Hang on a second. Hang on a second, John. Hang on. Because you are incredible. But I'm going to let Brian ask you a question. Brian's going down to D.C. tomorrow. So he's going to brave the cold. He's going to go all the way down. He's going to go all the way down to D.C., and he's going to park his rear end in a coffee shop, and he's going to watch it on their TV screen. you could do that here.
That
if you
was
wanted
I have to say, Joe, that was not my first choice. I was told originally that we've got tickets. Congressman Joyce has got us all tickets, and I thought I'd be picking out, do I go to the side or am I in front of the platform? But unfortunately, that doesn't. I guess many tickets were sold. It was oversold, and I guess there's people waiting to get in now. I'm told already. So we will be getting on a bus, six and a half hours, getting on the metro, going into D.C., and then walking to the Dubliner coffee shop in the Union Station. But we will be recording for Ohio Political News, and I still want to be there. Honestly, I still want to be there.
Without a doubt. John, I'm kind of amazed you're not going. Why aren't you going?
Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm now a full-time visiting professor here at Ottawa University, and I've got over 100 kids. We've just started our term, and it's amazing how plugged in and conservative these kids are. That's a whole other story. Also, I've got radio duties tomorrow. I'm going to be doing 12 inaugural salutes to President Donald Trump. And we'll be splicing in video from Republican presidential inaugurations. And, we have audio going back to the 1880s of Republican President Benjamin Harrison. And it doesn't stop with Harrison. It begins with Harrison. We also have William McKinley. We also have, obviously, Teddy Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, Calvin Coolidge, Warren Harding, Herbert Hoover, Ike, Nixon, Ford, Reagan, Bush 1, Bush 2. We've got Trump from before. The other thing is, I had a hunch that this was going to be difficult. When I was an elected official, I could have easily gotten inauguration tickets. When you're not an elected official, you really got to get them through the congressional pipeline. The other thing is, I had a sneaking suspicion that it might be ugly just because of what the Democrats did in 2017. And, it's frigid here, it's cold, and with my radio duties and with the university duties, it just didn't work out. But it's important that, guys, it's important that Massey is down there.
Congratulations on becoming a professor. Congratulations. I'm sure you're going to be spectacular. And we need some more conservative-minded professors at these colleges. So, thank God for that.
Well, I'm glad Massey is down there.
Let me ask you a question. Is there, most people watching this probably going to watch it on, we get a lot more people that watch it recorded than live. We're live right now, but, after it gets, they watch it uploaded. So they'll already know. Tomorrow we're going to know. But I want to get your thought, your premonition now. Do you think that there is going to be any trouble? What's your thoughts on what might happen in D.C.
No,
tomorrow?
they've nipped it. They've nipped it in the bud. There was a threat, and they have now counter-programmed against it. They did the fireworks and the marching bands at the National Country Club that Trump has in Jersey last night. They did the controlled rally, indoor rally today. They'll swear in off the dime if they have to. They might recreate a ceremonial one. They're going to make sure nothing goes wrong, and that's what shows that he's got an A team around him. Now, the word is that D.C. has got 400,000 Trump supporters there right now, that you cannot move in D.C. So, you know what? That's going to send a powerful message to the Senate, to the House, and to the media, even if they're not at the inaugural ball tomorrow. That number of bodies, and of course that protest fizzled out the other day, the angry women's group of 7.3 people that was at that one. That's going to be huge tomorrow. And the analogy that I would use with guys like Massey there tomorrow, to me it's going to be akin to when Pope John Paul II died in 2005, I believe it was, 1798, about 2005. When he passed away in 2005, and they thought, well, the church was going to go maybe with a more modern cardinal. And Then you had conservative Cardinal Ratzinger deliver the great homily, and all of those conservative Catholics from around the world came in. The traditional Catholics came in, 1 million at John Paul II's funeral. And, you know, the Cardinals are looking around at what the sensus fidelium is, the sense of the people, and thinking they want more of John Paul. They want the anti-communist, freedom lover. When they see all 400,000 you guys there tomorrow in the frigid cold, Mr. Massey, you're going to be sending a signal. It's like at the Husker and Iowa Hawkeye football games. They won't all fit the stadium, but if 50,000 are tailgating on the outside, it engenders a bigger zeitgeist, a greater vibe shift. It's all ripples and resonation in the pond, like Opie skipping the pond with Andy Griffith at the opening. Massey, you will be heard tomorrow. Absolutely.
Thank you, John. I've got one last question for John, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
As far as the executive orders, what do you think will be the first one that Trump will issue when he becomes president?
He's going to immediately go after the deportations of the rapists, the murderers, the child traffickers, and the drug lords in major U.S. metro areas. That starts tomorrow. Also, he's going to begin tomorrow immediately pardoning those people who were unjustly imprisoned without any due process of law, the January 6th peaceful protesters from 4 years ago. Those are going to be the first two things. And I think the third thing is he's going to do what he can tomorrow to start opening up our development of energy. That is the key to turning the economy around. When you cut energy prices, you cut the cost of goods that ultimately become retail goods because you cut down on transportation costs. Trump knows that. We've artificially been jacking up our energy rates. That's caused the inflation, which has caused the subsequent increase in interest rates. It's had a depressing effect on other parts of the economy. That nonsense ends tomorrow. I think there's a fourth set of executive orders he's going to sign. I predict he signs 100 of them tomorrow.
Wow.
100. But
Wow.
one of them will be to prevent men from playing in women's sports. So there's 4 highlights, but you're going to see 100 of those signed tomorrow. It's going to be an incredible 24 hours. Absolutely incredible.
Amazing.
Thank you,
Amazing.
John.
Leonard, do you have anything you want to throw at John?
Yeah, I just have one quick question. First of all, thanks for joining us. I know everybody's talking about DOGE, which I know it was Department of Government Efficiency. But what concerns me when I hear that, it makes me think of efficient socialism. So I see that we've increased the number of agencies in our federal government. Is anybody talking about cutting some of these agencies that are unconstitutional, which are quite a number of them?
Leonard, that's such a great question, and it goes to the heart of the issue. We're governed by an unelected regulatory administrative state right now. Many of these need to go. And, you know, we've had some people try that in the past. As is well known, John F. Kennedy wanted to strip away some of the excessive authority that some of our deep state intel had at the time. Might have cost him dearly, at least politically. And we've had so much corruption in the lawfare area. Leonard, I don't know if Trump's education secretary is up to doing heavy lift to get rid of the Department of Education. But I'm encouraged by the following. Trump has appointed some really good people at the Securities and Exchange Commission and at the IRS. He's going after some of the people that have been laying heavy burdens on our people. And one thing that I noticed in Trump's first term, as I was a businessman in the community, was Trump did a great job of deregulating. Leonard, my frustration is yours in that if Trump's gone in 4 years and we don't keep, the GOP reelected, can they just reverse everything again? So we need to start building some permanency to this. And we do need to, what Trump could do, he could literally fire all of the United States attorneys en masse tomorrow, which I think he should do, because he can't have a legal system that is dead set against him from the get-go. He can also do what Reagan did when there were recalcitrant federal employees that told Reagan, we don't care if you're president, we're going to do what we're going to do. Reagan fired the Patco workers. And, you can call that union busting, but Reagan was a union president. He does have some abilities to fire many of the people heading up these areas. I think even the chairman of the Federal Reserve, who thinks his job is safe, might not be as guaranteed of job security. So, but Leonard, I think the true answer to your question is this. Again, he's got 53 senators. If we had had completely fair elections, I think we probably would have 57 senators. That's a whole other sordid story, and we should be up by 15 in the House, not 3. But here's the thing. If McConnell and Thune and Ernst and Cornyn and Tom Tillis and Cassidy and Collins and Murkowski, there's 8. It depends on what those 8 do. We're going to have a 2-year window to get a lot of this done before the midterm. And then Trump's only got 2 years left on a second term, and we have congressional elections that could fill the majority back to the D's and check block a lot of what Trump wants to do, which is why I think it's really important at this stage. I hate to say it this way, but we're all mortal. I'm in my mid-60s. Perhaps it's time for some constitutional stalwarts on the Supreme Court to move aside and let President Trump appoint their successor to make sure that we hold on to the court. Because sad as it is to say, we do not have 6 conservatives on the court. We have 4. We have 4 conservatives. We have 3 liberals. And we have 2 named Roberts and Coney Barrett. And we don't have any predictability right now. So there's still work to do from the appointment of Supreme Court seats.
Yeah, and if they try to play any games,
Thank
if the Senate plays any games like you're talking about, I mean, we're fit to be tied right now. The people, the citizens of this country, we are fit to be tied if they're going to play games. God help them. That's all I got to say. Jonathan, go ahead and wrap it up tonight, if you would, please.
They're absolutely going to play games, and we know it. It's not like Trump won, and so therefore all the bad guys just roll over and leave. They didn't disappear. They're still bad guys, and they still have the same intentions. Some of them, as we touched on briefly earlier, are going to sort of flip their script and start talking MAGA and start speaking glowingly about Trump, etc. But just file that in the category of BS and lies, just like Mark Zuckerberg talking about how he's really always been a proponent of free speech. Well, yeah, nobody believes you. Plenty within the Republican Party are going to start talking as if they're America First and MAGA, but they're not. Pay attention to the people who follow politics, like John, and much newer to the game, me, and Ohio rhino hunters, and the things that we're doing here and all across the country to out and expose these people, which brings me to the point that I want to make. We cannot roll over and wait for whatever happens next. It's great to feel that we have some possible momentum, and it's exciting that at least at the top of the ticket we made it too big to rig. But this right now, ladies and gentlemen, is where the real work begins. Roll up your sleeves, get active, get involved. If you're not already doing it, come and find Dan Schultz or me on X. We host spaces twice a week. X spaces are kind of like a national conference call, training people on something called precinct strategy. We want you to get involved at the local level. We'll train you, we'll talk you up, we'll get you encouraged, we'll get you doing it. If you can't, we're going to walk you through finding somebody in your neighborhood who can. We actually, in Ohio, we have a dedicated website focused on it. It's ohioprecinctstrategy.org. Nationally, Dan Schultz and I have, Dan runs precinctstrategy.com. Find either or both websites. It's an entry. Find me on social media. You'll hear me talk about this twice a week. Eastern time, it's Tuesday afternoons at 2 p.m., Friday evenings at 9 p.m. It's so important. Dan and I have been doing this for over a year, twice a week, to encourage and train people to get active within the Republican Party nationally. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how we reclaim the party, and that's how we fix all these issues. Whatever the issue is that bothers you, from open borders to elections machines to weaponization of our Department of Justice, all of them get fixed when enough of us get active, engaged, and involved locally. PrecinctStrategy.com. Come find me. We will talk about it, and I'll get you started.
All right, good. John, this is an exciting time, though, isn't it? I mean, I know we have a Rhino Senate, we have a Rhino State House, or not State House, but Congress. But I'm still excited as all get out. This is an answer to a prayer.
Oh, you nailed it. This is a divine extension of mercy to the United States by Almighty God. And I just thank Jesus Christ for his blessings and for allowing the truth to come out. And, Donald Trump, you can tell, has evolved. Remember, Melania Trump insisted that there essentially be almost an exorcism of the White House before she would move in 2017. She's a woman of great prayer. Hey, look, they're playing the Ave Maria at the Trump events. Donald Trump, his brush with death has turned him into an even more sober, reflective man of faith. Listen, on our radio station, my wife and I sponsored Christmas messages that we underwrote of President Trump's Christmas message from one of his last White House Christmas. And when he was president the first time, he talks about the divinity and the messiahship and our Lord Jesus being the Christ. He speaks movingly about that. This is a man who, on the anniversary of Roe versus Wade in 2016, wrote an op-ed pro-life in USA Today that was poignant and beautiful. There's a lot of good going on. And, we've all been patient. We've been praying. We've been appealing to the better angels of our nature. And I do think that there's a vibe shift going on. If you look at the Ohio State Notre Dame football teams, I'm not talking the administrations, I'm talking about the members of those teams, both Ohio State and Notre Dame, and their testimonials after the games and before games, and talking about their motivations and their seasonal effect. They are all extolling the saving grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. And this is extending to many of our sports teams all across the country. You're seeing massive baptisms in lakes and ponds near college campuses, led often by coaching staffs and players. And Joe, I think we may be at the advent of even a spiritual renewal in America. And boy, do we need it.
Oh, man, do we need it.
I'm very optimistic. It's morning in America. With Joe Biden, you spelled morning MOURNING. With Trump, we spelled the way Ronald Reagan did. It's morning in America. Again, MORNING.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, John. God bless you, man. Yeah, we need a revival. We absolutely need a revival, politically and spiritually. Thanks again. Yep. God bless you guys. Thanks, everybody. Leonard, thank you. Brian.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, John.
Don't freeze
Jonathan.
going down there.
Leonard.
Jonathan, thank you again, too. Have a good night,
Godspeed.
everybody.
Safe travels home.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.